Welcome back, everyone. Today we're continuing our internship preparation series, and we're going to talk about creating your list of sites, questions about documenting clinical hours, and also questions about completing the APPI. So, first of all, where do you apply and how do you come up with your list? Well, I want to talk to you about some of the ways, just in general, to do this, and also touch on a couple sites that I really like and think are diamonds in the rough. So, the first question is, what type of site are you looking for? And here, I think the setting really matters. So, think about where it is you want to end up in the future. If you want to be in an academic department, it, like in a psychology department, it doesn't matter as much what type of internship you go to. If you go to a VA, plenty of people go into academia from VAs, plenty go from academic medical centers. I went to an academic medical center. Um, it's going to be more about your record overall. Though certainly a site that is heavy on research is going to be viewed favorably and will help you to get some research done during that internship year. If you want to be in a college counseling center, ideally you'd be in a college counseling center. So, think about those things. I think it's most important for if you want to be in an academic medical center eventually, in the end. Because for a lot of those sites, what I see is for the vast majority of academic medical centers, you need to do a postdoc, and usually you need to do their postdoc. It's usually a 1 to 2 year job interview almost. And the best way to get their postdoc is to be one of their interns. A lot of sites that are really well established academic medical centers, they just feed their postdocs with their interns. So can you get one of those spots without being one of their interns? Sure. But often your odds are not nearly as good. So think about that when you're deciding where to apply, because it's very often what you'll see, and you'll notice this when you interview at places too. The people that are on faculty at those places also did their internship at those places and then their postdoc at those places. That's not by mistake. So pay attention to that as you go through. Um, with that, you may want to think ahead and say, for a certain site that you're looking at, does it have a postdoc? Because moving across the country is expensive, and doing it twice in 2 years is doubly expensive. So, if you're pretty sure you're going to need a postdoc, it's nice to be able to go to a one stop shop where you can go and do the internship, and then you have a postdoc you can apply for and likely, hopefully, get. There are still a couple sites, they're a lot rarer nowadays, but there are still a couple sites that have internship and postdoc combined. So you're basically making a 2 year commitment from the get go. Some people really don't like this. I loved that idea back in the day because I knew that I would be able to just stay there and know that postdoc was done. I didn't have to deal with it. Obviously, I did not end up going to a site like that, but I did have one that I applied to and I ranked it well. Um, so location, good and bad news about location. So obviously, many of you are going to be trying to get to a certain part of the country, and you've likely already heard, and this is good advice, don't be geographically limited. Um, so what do you do with this? Um, there are ways to work around it. So if you really want to be in a certain place, as long as you're still able to apply to at least 15 sites that are a good match for you and your training needs and your background, it's not going to kill you. Now, with that, there are a lot of big cities that a lot of people want to be in. Chicago, San Francisco, New York, Boston. Those are all going to be much more selective. And you'll see it when you go through these sites and you look at how many applications they're getting. So keep that in mind. You may actually, if you have your heart set on Chicago, for instance, you may want to, really look at what are some up and coming sites that maybe haven't done as much traction yet, and maybe even apply for more than 15 sites just to try to help you with that. Now, the advantage we have here is the Southeast is actually the spot that has the least amount of competition of anywhere in the country. So if you just want to stay in the Southeast, you're good. Um, the numbers are actually working for you. And some of my favorite sites are down here in the Southeast or in the general region. So um, I'll be able to help you with some ideas about sites that, wherever you want to be. So talk with me about that. And we likely can get you figured out. At the end of the day, it's all about match. So it's both having the right experiences um, so that you can hit the ground running at a training site. And it's also having gaps in your training so that there's something for them still to train you on because it's still a training year. And a good site will know that and respect that and will want people that still have some need for growth and some room for growth. Um, you will have some sites that will just treat you as cheap labor and they're looking for a final product already because they want to just ship you out and bill for you. Those are not ideal. Those are not the sites you want. So pay attention to that on interview because there are some good names that end up doing that. And again, talk to me privately. I have some that I know of. And likely I will warn you when I see them on your list. But most sites understand it's a training year and they're committed to helping you with your training. And so keep that in mind. At the end of the day, I'd much rather you apply for a very selective site that's a perfect match for you and your training needs than a site that's less selective but not as good of a fit. And even though the numbers really shouldn't play out this way, I really think you'll probably have a better shot at the site that's more selective. When you look at, for me, the site that I ended up matching at um, was much more selective than a backup option that I had that actually ranked higher that was not as good of a fit. Um, but, the numbers just worked out that way because I was a better fit there and they felt the same. So just keep that in mind when you're going through this process. It's really all about the match with that site. So numbers are important, but find places that are really going to be a good fit for you and your training needs. So, how many sites to apply to? The magic number is 15 sites. You should have at least 15 on your list. You'll notice that after 15, the fees start going up because they don't want you to apply to, a ton of them. Now, if you're applying for a bunch of long shots, if you're applying to all like four of the Harvard sites, I forget how many sites they have, but they have several, or you're applying to Brown and all, you might think of applying a couple extra, just knowing that the odds are lower at a couple of your sites. If you're applying for big city sites, you may want to apply for a couple extra again, just kind of knowing your odds. Um, one of the things I really like to do is consider mixing in a couple places that have open houses in your list instead of just those that just have your traditional interviews. Open houses are really nice because they give you some flexibility. A lot of those that have open houses don't necessarily expect you to be there, um, but they're also there. So if you're not getting the number of interviews that you were hoping for, you might hit up a couple more of those open houses than you would have otherwise, but you still can go and do that and make sure you show your face. Um, I went to one open house when I applied. It was for Detroit, VA. Um, I honestly don't know how that site is nowadays. It was not one of my top sites, honestly, back in the day. Um, Overall, the open house was really helpful. I got a really good sense of what was available at the site, but also they said that they would make an effort not to get to know you at the open house so it wouldn't enter into their ranking. And I believe it. They knew who came just by who took name tags, but there was not a lot of interest in knowing us on an individual basis, which is good and bad. Yeah, well, it's truth in advertising, I suppose. Um, but it's nice to have a couple open houses in your list if you can, just because, you never know. You never know. It's just good to have the option in case you're just not getting traction somewhere else. So, finding diamonds in the rough. This is something I wanted to show you a little bit about, and show you how to find. And here I'll talk about a couple of my favorite diamonds in the rough too. Um, though I hate to do it on a YouTube video because there are many sites I really like, but I'll throw out a couple that I like as well. So, one of the first things, and this I really think all of you should do no matter what. So, search for APA accreditation. And what I want you to go here was what this program status is. We can look at all the programs that are applying for accreditation and those that are recently accredited. So here you have all your internships and you can see where they are in the process. So the date they applied, like this is an applicant for accredited on contingency. You might consider applying to some of these that have already applied. These are still unaccredited sites. So with that, you'd still need CCC approval and blessing to actually apply to any of these sites. And we'll consider them on a case-by-case basis. The real diamond in the roughs, though, are the ones down here. These are sites you can see, like this one just in April got accredited. There are going to be a lot of people that do not know about this site. It's an accredited site. It's in San Francisco, if you want to be in San Francisco. These are your diamonds in the rough. These are ones that a lot of people won't know about. Also, this was actually one of the ones I wanted to talk about. West Virginia University, Martinsburg. If it hasn't changed, I believe, let me even look. I believe Brian Creasy is the head there, or is the DCT there. And he was a cohort mate of mine. Directory. Guessing there aren't a lot of sites with Martinsburg. Oh, they're still listed as not accredited there. They may have not updated that. They're listed as accredited on the APPIC website, or on the APA website. So that's one I would check in with them. I believe they are accredited. They may just not have updated this. And I think Brian is now the person leading this. I'm guessing they just haven't updated this. So keep these in mind. All these ones that just got accredited. These are great places to apply, because they're just not going to be on a lot of people's radars yet. Another thing, if you're open to counseling centers, in general, counseling centers do get fewer applications than academic medical centers. It's still an APA accredited internship. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day unless you want to be in an academic medical center. So consider counseling centers, especially if you're geographically limited. Now, with that, it's really important that you have experience working in a counseling center. So if you haven't worked in student counseling, then it's probably not a good fit. But if you have, consider those. So a couple of my favorite sites. Another West Virginia site. No, that's Morgantown. There's WVU Charleston. Let's see if. Wait. No, I think I misspelled it. I think it's London. Let's see. And my internet is slow. John Linton. There we go. Yes, I certified training director. I'm a nerd. So this is in Charleston, West Virginia. It's a really great health site spot. John Linton's been there a very long time. Um, I know few training directors as dedicated to training as he is. Um, the site that I mentioned that I ranked higher but was not as good of a match for me was this site. I really liked this site a lot. Liked it back in the day. That's why I ranked it high. Their stipends often are a little higher than most. Take a peek at I think yeah they've changed their process a little. So um, yeah, okay, it's very similar. So it says that a visit is optional with this site. Honestly, it's really not, in my opinion. Um, they really they this is a great site, but you need to show them love. You need to be active with emailing them early, showing your interest, asking questions about the site. They want to know who you are from the get go. The other thing with this site, if it hasn't changed yet, hasn't changed. They have a December 1st deadline. Don't apply on December 1st. This is actually one of the ways they cut people. I think. Apply November 1st when you apply for everything else, because I the sense I've gotten from them is that they do this in order to see, who may be using them as a secondary site and not as a primary site. And it really deserves to be someone's, up in the top choices. It's a great training site. They have a really strong faculty. A lot of their interns end up being on their faculty, which again, that means a lot to me. That's something I looked for. But it's not as selective as a lot of places. I don't know why their numbers went down last year, but you can see they had 71 applications, granted 3 slots, but still, those are pretty good odds. It's a lot better odds than you'll see for a lot of different sites. So it's one of my favorite sites. West Virginia University, Charleston. I just now it's listed more as Charleston Area Medical Center. Um, really, really good site. Another one they wanted to highlight, and those in our program already know about this one. Um, Mississippi State Hospital. Now, they don't have any, despite the name, they don't have any affiliation with us. But um, we've had several people match here, going back to our unaccredited days. They took a chance on us when we were unaccredited and still matched with us, even though um, we had not finished being accredited yet, because they knew how important that first match was for us. And it's something I'll never forget. I really appreciate that they did that, and as an accredited site, reached out and helped us. So I will always recommend Mississippi State Hospital, in part for that, and in part because I think they just do a really nice job training. They do have postdoc positions down there. You're in the Jackson area, so there are a lot of other postdoc opportunities at Mississippi Medical Center. They don't require a ton of hours, but look at these application numbers. Like, this is absurd. For an APA accredited site, this is absurd. So, if you're in our program, I strongly encourage you to apply there. If you're just watching this from another program, this is probably not on your list. This site needs to be on your list. It absolutely needs to be on your list. Likewise, another diamond in the rough in Mississippi. We've never had anyone go there. Um, Pine Grove is down in Hattiesburg. And, you know, as far as addictions and rehab, this is about as good as you're going to find anywhere. It's a tremendous, tremendous site. Their stipends are a little lower. That that's unfortunate, but Again, you don't have a tremendously high threshold for hours. And look at this, 15 applications. They interviewed 11 of them. 15 apps, 2 slots. Like, where else are you going to find this? You know, this is a long-standing APA accredited site. These are great sites to have on your list. And this is why it's easier, actually, if you want to be in the Southeast, is we have sites like this that are just lower than a lot. There's several VAs around us. There's Biloxi VA. There's Tupelo VA. Tupelo, I was Tuscaloosa, sorry, Runty. There's Memphis VA. A lot of good options around us. There are a couple of those, like I think Tuscaloosa requires a whole mess of hours. So keep that in mind. Watch your hour limits. Let's see, where am I? Yes, start and end dates. So when you're looking at sites, pay attention to their start date. It is very, very important. Um, and the reason why, and I know I've mentioned this before, but I'm going to harp on it. Um, August 10th is shaping up to be our magic number. So that's the day we need you to be done with them certifying that you're done with your internship in order for us to process you for August graduation. Otherwise, you're waiting until December graduation. For a lot of sites, that means that you won't be able to accrue any postdoc hours until December. You're just kind of in limbo. And there are some postdocs where you might not even be able to really start or bill or do anything until December. So pay attention to that. If at all possible, try to get a site that has a start date before August 10th. If it has to be after, we have a couple after right now, it happens. Um, that's okay. But just be aware that it leads to some licensure issues because we can't certify you, we can't graduate you until you're done with an APA accredited internship. So pay attention to that. I mentioned the due dates. That's mostly for, so my notes say note the due dates. They don't all mean what they say they do. That's going back to that West Virginia site where they say it's due December 1st, but really, if you're turning it in that late, they're factoring that in. I don't know how many sites are that way, but I get a sense there are several. As much as you can. If you can get your applications out on November 1, do it. Just get them all out, get it over with, and that way, if you do have any other sites that just happen to pay attention to it, you're good. Clinical hours. So your clinical hours need to be in the APPIC system and sent to me for review by October 15th. Now, I'm willing to let you estimate the number of hours you will get between October 15th and November 1st in that calculation. So include those in. So basically, on November 15th, you're sending me the hours that you will have as of November 1st using your best estimate. That's what I will review. I have to approve that before you're going to be able to apply. If I want to see a modification, I'm going to reject your hours, and you'll get this harsh email saying I rejected your hours. It doesn't mean there's anything major wrong. You'll just look in the note, you'll see what it is I need changed. But I can't just email you and say that, just tweet this thing. I have to actually reject your hours and send them back to you for you to make the change. So that's, when you get that message saying I rejected your hours, that's what it means. Very important. If there is anything in your history that may ding on a background check, I need to know about it now. So, there have already been some APPIC emails about this. It happens every year where someone matches and then they fail a background check and that match is then null and void. It's horrible. Now, with it, there are things that happen. We have had students where we have had things that have happened, where I have needed to explain what happened and make sure that sites are on board with them, that they can still take their students. It's important that we do that. because we want the site that you match at for you to be able to qualify for and be able to do their internship. There's no reason to go through this process and spend all the money and do all this stuff to get an internship that you can't go to. So, again, very important. If there's anything in your history that you think may possibly show up on a background check, if you're not sure, you need to talk to me and we'll figure it out. And if it's, we'll make it work. But I need to know. On your APPI, you will talk about your anticipated practicum experiences from November 1st until the end of the year. I don't really care what you put in there, but what's important with that is that I am going to hold you to whatever you put in there because I sign off on it that all this is accurate. So if you say that you're going to discontinue at your external site on November 1st and there aren't going to be any more hours after that point, well, some sites may ask you why you're doing that, but if that is your choice, that is fine. You need to put that in your APPI, and you need to show that there won't be any anticipated hours after that point. And I will let you do that as long as you do it that way. Now, if you say you're going to have 300 extra hours in that time, and you're going 2 days a week and whatnot, don't come and ask me after you submit the APPI to drop to 1 day a week. I'm not going to approve it. Because I'm committing to whatever it is that you put there. So with those anticipated future hours, there's flexibility on what those look like. But whatever you commit to is what we commit to and we hold you to. If you haven't logged in and looked at the APPI yet, please do that. Now is a good time to do that. Make sure you understand what information you need. If you have questions, let me know. Make sure you have all the information on hand that you need. Time to track is your friend. So if you haven't already updated your time to track and all your hours, get them updated. Start looking back at your old reports. Start figuring out which ones you want to use as work samples. All this is going to start hitting soon. So just start making sure you have all those things set up so it's not just a wild race the last week, because you will not be happy if it is. So that's my presentation on site lists, documenting hours, completing the APPI. Just take a peek. APPI is pretty straightforward. And if you have questions, let me know. And I'll be back soon with more on essays.